11 seconds. That is all it took for a family to lose 11,400 pounds on a Tuesday morning in 1997. House clearance somewhere in the English counties. 3 adult children, a hired van, and a narrow staircase. One son came down holding a small leather case, the kind with the brass clasp, and a shoulder strap gone stiff with age. He looked at it the way people look at things they have already decided about. Dusty, heavy, worthless. Without opening it once, he handed it to the clearance man at the bottom of the stairs. Across the room, I was there to value the furniture. Said nothing. Not my place. But I knew the weight of that case from 12 feet away, knew the shape of it. And when the vanman dropped it on the van seat and the clasp caught the morning light for just the moment, I saw the small red logo pressed into the leather. 3 weeks later, that camera sold at specialist auction in London for £11,400. The furniture made £340 all told. The son bought a second-hand Ford. My name is David Carrow. 32 years buying and selling photographic equipment. From flea markets in the early days to the specialist rooms at the major London auction houses. Cameras worth more than most people's cars have passed through. These hands so have cameras worth less than a cup of tea. The gap between them is almost never what the family thinks it is. Retired now, no shop, no stock, no commission on a single thing you own. Which is exactly why you should hear what comes next. Because above your head right now, behind the water tank or inside a wardrobe box nobody has touched since a different century, there is almost certainly a camera. Possibly in a leather case. Possibly with a name on the lens that means absolutely nothing to you and everything to a collector in Tokyo or Hamburg or New York who has been looking for that exact variant for 7 years. 10 cameras follow, the ones the clearance trade counts on you never recognizing. Each one looks like clutter. Each one has sold at verified, documented auction for sums that would change your morning. Number 1 on this list, the camera every family dismisses as the boring old one, the plain-looking rectangle nobody ever fights over, at a clearance holds the world auction record for any camera ever sold. Over £14 million. Whatever you do, don't let the van take it first. Number 10, the Polaroid Land Camera. Not the plastic toy from the school disco. Forget that one entirely. Earlier models are what matter here. The folding cameras from the 1950s and 1960s, built with bellows and a proper viewfinder. A body of bakelite and chrome that had real weight and real intention behind it. Polaroid invented instant photography with these machines, and because everyone treated them as novelties rather than instruments, they were discarded in their millions. Survivors in decent condition have quietly become collectible as a result. Common folding models in working order fetch £40 to £120. Modest enough. But the professional variants, the 110A and 110 bytes in particular, stripped by enthusiasts to accept standard film, sell for several £100s to the right buyer. A Model 95 in its original case with manual and accessories makes £200 to £400 with consistency. Here is your test tonight. Feel along the camera's body for the accordion fold between lens and body. Anything that folds is worth examining further. Open it gently in a darkened room with a small torch held inside the bellows, and look for pinholes of light. Then read the model number from the front panel before forming any opinion about value. The loss I saw most often in this category borders on comic bellows cameras, binned without a second look because the word Polaroid made a family think of the plastic toy. Different era, different engineering, different money entirely. Number 9, the twin lens reflex. Strange looking thing. 2 lenses stacked vertically, like a face with 2 eyes, one above the other. You hold it at waist height and look down into a viewfinder on top. Peculiar to use, peculiar to look at, and in the right make and condition. Genuinely serious money. Rolleiflex is the name that matters most, and it matters enormously. German-made from the late 1920s onwards, the Rolleiflex became the working instrument of the great photographers of the 20th century. Diane Arbus shot with one, Vivian Maier shot with one. Every serious portrait and fashion photographer of the 1950s wanted the best, and the best was a Rollei. A standard Rolleiflex 2.8 Fahrenheit, the most coveted common model, sells today for £600 to £1,200 in good working order. Rarer variants climb considerably beyond that. White tropical versions, early 1930s, bodies with specific lens combination. Cameras in original leather cases with matching hood and caps have sold at specialist auction for £3,000 to £6,000. Even the budget sibling, the Rolleicord, brings £80 to £200 consistently. Tonight, look between the two lenses for the name on the lens panel. Write every word and number down. The specific lens fitted to a twin-lens camera changes the value dramatically, sometimes by a factor of 3, and never force the film advance mechanism if it offers any resistance, because a jammed Rolleiflex that needs a technician is worth half a working one. Number 8. The Cold War Spy Camera. Smaller than a matchbox, lighter than a phone. Built to a precision that the factories of the 1950s had no legitimate business to achieving at that scale. Sub-miniature cameras occupy their own world inside the collector market, and the names that matter are Soviet and East German more often than not. The Minox is the one everyone half recognizes from spy films. And rightly so, because intelligence services on both sides of the Iron Curtain used them in the field. A genuine Minox B or C in its original leather case with the chain, the developing reel, and the presentation box sells for £150 to £400, depending on completeness. Early models and special editions go considerably higher. Soviet cameras are where the real surprises hide. Certain KMZ, Fed, and Kiev models were produced in very small numbers for specific institutional purposes and are now hunted by collectors in America, Germany, and Japan, who pay sums that would seem irrational to anyone who had not handled one. One camera from this category came out of a box of miscellaneous junk at a Midlands house sale. Black, tiny, looked exactly like a novelty cigarette lighter. Inside the pouch, stamped with an eagle and a military designation, was a complete Minox B with every accessory intact, gone for £680 at auction. The family had been storing rubber bands in that pouch for 20 years. Anything smaller than a deck of cards with a lens on one end goes in the good pile without debate. Use a magnifying glass to read the maker's name if you need to, because the engraving on these is often microscopic. Number 7. The medium format folder. Pick one up collapsed and it sits in your palm like a slim hardback book. Press the release and the lens unfolds on its struts like something opening. The bellows extending smoothly, the viewfinder rising into position. Collapsed, it is a pocket camera. Open, it is a precision instrument taking a large negative of extraordinary quality. Voigtlander, Zeiss Icon, and Agfa are the names most commonly found in British attics. At the top of the pile sit the Plaubaumachina and the Linhof. A Zeiss Icon Icoflex brings £100 to £500 depending on its lens. Voigtlander, Besser models with Scopard glass sell for £80 to £250 in working order. The Plaubaumachina, 67. The cult documentary camera of the 1980s, beloved by serious photographers who knew what they were doing, sells today for £800 to £1,800. What drives the value on folding cameras is nearly always the lens rather than the body. Zeiss, Tessar, and xenon glass is what collectors are actually buying. A camera with the right lens, kept inside a case in an attic for 50 years, is often in finer condition than one that has been used and serviced and used again. Open it gently if the mechanism allows. Read the name on the lens ring itself, not the body plate. They are not always the same maker. Then check the bellows for pinholes the same way you check the Polaroid, because a bellows camera with sound glass and a clean lens is a camera that deserves a proper valuation. Number 6, the rangefinder. That is not a Leica. Everyone has heard of Leica. That conversation comes last because it deserves its own space. Before we get there, the shadow market matters. The cameras that gathered in Leica's wake, because they shared Leica's philosophy of small, precise, and serious. Nikon made rangefinder cameras before it made the SLRs that built its modern reputation. The Nikon SP in good condition sells today for £1,500 to £3,500. Black paint versions, produced in smaller numbers, exceed that considerably. A Canon P or Canon 7, the professional rangefinders Canon made through the 1950s, sells for £200 to £600, depending on the lens attached. Pre-war Contax 2 and 3RI bodies with Zeiss glass bring £400 to £900. Crucially, the lenses on these cameras detach. A Zeiss Sonnar or Nikkor lens made for a 1950s rangefinder is still used by working photographers today. It sells independently to that market, regardless of what body it came attached to. Which means you may have two things worth money sitting in one case, and the lens is worth more than the body it is mounted on. Two windows on the front face side by side, one for the viewfinder, one for the rangefinder. That is the identifying feature. Write down everything engraved on the top plate and everything on the lens ring. Then separate the lens from the body gently and value each piece on its own before valuing the pair. Number 5, the Japanese SLR with the unfamiliar name. Every camera fair in the country runs this same scene. Someone arrives with a bag. Inside it is a body carrying a name nobody immediately recognizes: Petri, Miranda, Cosina, Chinon. Down it goes on the dealer's table. £20 for the lot, the dealer says. Then the dealer turns the lens over. Japanese camera manufacturers in the 1960s and 1970s supplied lenses and bodies between each other in complicated and overlapping ways. Optical glass made by one of the great houses ended up on bodies carrying a retailer's name. They're Zeiss lenses on Contax bodies that originated in Japanese factories. There are Leitz lenses turning up on cameras nobody outside the trade has heard of. And sitting in attics on bodies the family considers worthless are Nikon, Canon, and Pentax lenses with the exact optical formula that photographers today actively seek and pay well for. Separating the lens from the body is the entire transaction. A Nikkor 50mm f1.4 from the 1970s sells for £150 to £300, independently of whatever it came mounted to. A Canon FD 50mm f1 2L brings £400 to £700. Certain Leitz and Zeiss lenses in clean condition have sold for thousands with no body attached at all. Detach the lens from the body if the mount releases naturally. Read the lens independently. Aperture ring, focus ring. The name and focal length engraved on the front element. Do not clean the glass with anything, not a cloth, not a breath, and a sleeve, nothing. Because a cleaned lens that was dusty is still sellable, and a scratched lens from an aggressive wipe is not. Number 4, the press camera. Large, heavy, complicated in the way that only professional tools from the 1940s are complicated, and it looks exactly like the camera a photographer would be holding outside a wartime courtroom, which is precisely where it spent 20 years earning its reputation. Speed graphics, with the American press camera for 4 decades. Every front page, every presidential photograph, every crime scene image from the 1930s through the 1960s was made with one of, and lens are all separate components and all entirely unremarkable individually. Put together, they form one of the finest camera systems ever manufactured. Keep everything that came out of the same bag together. Do not allow components to drift into separate boxes or separate rooms. Search the name on the body and prepare for what the internet tells you. Then contact a specialist rather than a generalist, because a generalist will value it as parts and a specialist will value it as a system. And the difference between those two conversations can be £1,000. Number 2, the movie camera. Ignored every time. Set aside on clearance day as the thing that records rather than the thing that photographs. Assumed worthless because video killed the format 30 years ago and nobody has thought about it since. That assumption is costing families real money right now. Rolleiflex made professional 16mm film cameras in Switzerland for 60 years, and the H16 Rex 5, the model that documentary filmmakers and avant-garde directors trusted through the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s, sells today for £800 to £2,000 in good working order. A Boyu R16 with a zoom lens brings £400 to £900. Russian Konvas and Krasnogorsk cameras, the workhorses of Soviet cinema, have attracted a devoted following among filmmakers who value their optical quality at prices that begin at £200 and climb from there. Step up to 35mm, and the figures change entirely. Professional Rolleiflex, Mitchell, and Bell & Howell IMO cameras, the cameras that made the films you have watched your whole life, sell for sums that make the still camera market look modest by comparison. Motor wind, footage counter, lens that screws into a mount rather than drops into a film slot. Those 3 features together tell you it is a movie camera and not a still camera. And it requires a different valuation conversation entirely. Look inside the carrying case, because the accessories, the lenses, the magazines, the mate boxes and follow focus systems frequently exceed the value of the body. Clearance men take the body and leave the box. The box is often where the money actually lives. Number 1, the Leica. Save for last, not because it is the most obvious answer, but because it is the most misidentified object in the British attic. And that misidentification costs families thousands of pounds every single year, while the clearance trade says absolutely nothing. Plain is the word for a Leica. Deliberately, almost stubbornly plain. A small rectangular body in chrome or black. A lens that sits flush to the face, rather than protruding. No drama in the lines. Nothing that announces itself the way a Hasselblad announces itself. Set it on a table, beside a camera from Boots the chemist, and a family who does not know what they are looking at will pick up the Boots camera first. That mistake is worth thousands. Every version of the Leica M3 in good condition, the most common of the desirable models, sells today for £900 to £1,800. A Leica M2 in black paint rather than chrome, produced in smaller numbers, brings £2,000 to £5,000. The older screw-mount IIF and IIG sell for £300 to £800 in standard configuration, and multiples of that in rare variants. Military-marked bodies, small run, special editions, unusual lens pairings, prototype cameras. These enter a different financial atmosphere entirely. World auction record for a single camera, £14 million. A Leica prototype, not suggesting the case in your attic holds a £14 million camera, suggesting it may hold a £4,000 camera, that your most efficient relative is about to carry down the stairs and put on a table marked 50 pence. Read the top plate. Read the lens ring. Write down the model designation, the serial number, and every letter and number engraved anywhere on the body. Then open the free Leica serial number database online. Takes 4 minutes and costs nothing. And match what you have. 4 minutes is the entire distance between knowing and not knowing. Not knowing is a gift you hand the clearance man every single time, and the clearance man has been receiving that gift from families across this country for 100 years without once saying thank you. The camera that opened this video, the one that went for £11,400, while the family bought a Ford leather case, brass clasp, red logo, handed over in 11 seconds on a Tuesday morning. It was a Leica. 4 minutes might have saved it. Every camera in this list shares one characteristic. None of them announce their value. None of them look like money. They sit in cases that smell of another decade, behind boxes from a different century, in the particular silence of things that have outlasted everyone who knew what they were. Go up there before anyone else does. Go slowly. Read every word on every surface. Search every number before forming any opinion. Open nothing that resists being opened before the clearance van is booked. Before the efficient relative arrives with the bin bags and the momentum of good intentions. Before the 11 seconds happen again in your house. Press like before you climb the ladder. It genuinely tells me this is worth continuing. Subscribe, because next week we open the camera bags themselves. The lenses, the light meters sitting in cases beside the body that the family always assumes are the boring accessories. One light meter made to match a specific camera, complete in its case, sold for more than the camera it was built to accompany. Tell me in the comments what camera is sitting in your attic right now. Make, model, anything you can read on it. Every comment gets a response. Attics have surprised me too many times to doubt yours. Go and have a proper look. You never know